Last week, we shared our 100K webinar framework, the conversion system that's turned one presentation into 6 figures of consulting work. But selling is only half of the equation. You can run the perfect webinar or sales call, but if your offer isn't built to attract the right work, you'll end up back in a calendar full of stuff you don't even want to do. And exactly the same thing that pushed you out of your job in the first place. So that's why we're talking today about offer systems, right? Before visibility next week, because to show up online without an aligned offer will attract opportunities, but just not the ones you want. So to make it easy, grab our free Irresistible Offer Playbook at unleashyes.org/offer. It's the quick start guide to offers that sell themselves. Welcome back, Yes Club.
What's up, fam? I was going to try to beat you to it this time.
Well, that's my line.
I feel like this is like going to end up being like just like the logo for everything we do. Just your face in a hat, like, what's up, fam?
What's up, fam? That's right. Oh, I know. So we are back.
We are back.
And ready to keep going with our From Crickets to Clients, and excited about today's episode.
I'm excited. This has been a fun little series. We don't often get so tactical on this podcast, but we really felt like it was time to just go there and throw back the curtain and say, this is kind of all the systems that make things work for us. It's a question we've heard from a lot of people, like what are the systems I should be thinking of? And that question, I think, was planted about 8 months ago. And then we started thinking, like, what are those key systems that we just repeat over and over and are essential? And so
I mean, sometimes it's great to have a podcast where you're being sort of aspirational and inspirational, and we can do that too, but also being tactical, right? And giving people opportunities to understand what are the maneuvers that will really help them move into a different place. But of course, as we do.
As we must.
Let's check in as we always do. We're going to check in with each other with a fun check-in question. And today's question is this. What's the most random request you've ever said yes to that had nothing to do with your actual goals?
This is an easy one for me.
Okay.
I told you about this experience, but about 2-3 months after I quit my job, I was saying yes to a lot of random things. But the most random, the randomest, if you will, was doing anti-racism training on a cowboy ranch.
Oh, I remember this. You telling me about that.
In rural Alberta, Canada. Yep, I did that. Luckily, it wasn't just me. There was someone else there too. But without going into too many of the details, they needed us to come in, talk to all of the... They actually did, there's a name for this job other than cowboy, but I can't remember it right now. So it was mostly men, a couple women, but we went in through small groups for about half a day for each small group over 2 full days, went through the entire staff, and we did anti-racism training with a group that was not very open to anti-racism training. Do you know what, though? It sounds like it was awful, and in some ways I was like, this is not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
But I just had that 5% edge on the people in the room. And I'm an educator. So we sat in a circle. We made it very much about identity and not about racism.
Yeah.
And just how we all get misunderstood based on what we surfacely look like versus who we actually are. And it ended up being a great day of just storytelling and connection. And it was really cool. I got to hold a baby calf.
Yeah.
It was very
I remember
cool.
you showing me those pictures
it was very cute.
Of that whole day. And I mean, it was certainly work that was worthy of doing, but
for sure,
certainly tangential at best to
assessment
your actual goals.
For sure. The girl that I was working with at the time, and it was her company, and I'd been doing some kind of freelance work with her. We call this sponge income in this realm. We talk about sometimes you just need to do things to cover the bills when you're getting started. But she said to me as we were driving back, she's like, that was great, and I felt like we got to a really rich place, but you keep talking about being a teacher. All your stories come back to being a teacher, and I'm like, because I am. I don't.
Yeah,
I really don't know how to turn it off. As much as I've explored, maybe I'd step outside of the K-12 space. I just can't.
But when I was a ranch hand, this is what I
know.
did.
I'm like, what am I supposed to say? I don't know.
I know.
Anyways, what about you, Tom?
The one that comes to mind is saying yes to, ironically, in Vernon, I was asked to come and speak to a parent advisory council, so a PAC.
Okay.
And they wanted me to talk about it. This was when I was in the early stages of learning about behavioral support and working with kids in that realm. And they wanted me to talk to a group of parents about parenting. 2002.
Nice.
My son was 2. My daughter was 5.
Well,
and I'm going to come in as the speaker and talk about an expert. This is what you should do as a parent. And I'm like, I have no idea. I've only been a parent for 5 years, and pretty much the first 5 years you just pick them up and move them. You just do your thing, right? There's no like parenting going on.
Yeah, life lessons.
Yeah, but I'm up there preaching about all these things you should do as a parent. And I'm like, I felt like such a fraud. It wasn't that I knew my stuff. Like I knew what I was talking about setting expectations and reinforcement and feedback and all these types of fundamental principles that certainly work in the science of behavior and how we support that work in schools. But to get in front of a group of parents now, the response was very positive, I will say, and I appreciated that. But we were at the Prestige Inn up there in Old Vernon, and
classy like that.
Yeah, we were classy like that, and it was a great day. I mean, we had a lot of fun, and you know, I was doing my best not to come across as a parenting expert, but it just felt really at least a little premature at best, right?
Yeah.
I was just, I don't think my kids weren't old enough. I was a parent, but my kids weren't old enough. I wasn't able to sort of draw upon my own experience, but I was able to draw upon kind of this is what we do in schools. And it seemed it was well received. The feedback was positive, but I felt really uncomfortable doing the whole thing.
Fair. And this directly connects to what we're going to be talking about today, because we're going to call out the danger zone, if you will, for every new K-12 consultant, because we know what it feels like to crave freedom, doing your own thing. And suddenly you're saying yes to everything. And you're in that space where you're showing up feeling like a fraud, you know, a workshop here, a meeting there, a favor for an old colleague. And suddenly your calendar is full of things that you don't really want to do and just are like helping everyone else. And you're right back where you started.
Right. And the thing is that's what pushed you in the first place out of your job, or at least to the point of frustration, where you and I often talk about the push and the pull. This is the push. Filling your calendar makes it feel busy, and it makes you feel like you're doing work, but you're really distracted. It's the whack-a-mole. You're saying yes to everything, right? You have this endless to-do list, and you're filling it with things that only matter to everyone else except you.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't matter to you, but you're saying yes to things. There's a bit of a desperation that comes from that.
And because you're just so grateful for the work, you tell yourself, no, this is good. It's worth it. Until 3 months, 6 months, suddenly a year goes by and you realize that you've just built another job that you don't love, grounded in a people-pleasing habit that you were like, this is the time I'm going to turn it all around, instead of building a business that you actually want to wake up to every day.
Right. When you're doing work that doesn't inspire you, you're being paid for, and you're doing it for other people, that exactly feels like a job. That's a job. You just have a different boss now, right?
Exactly.
So by the end of this episode, listeners, you're going to know exactly how to design an offer that protects your time, positions you as a specialist, and lets you grow. And here's the key: without burning out.
Absolutely. So by the end of this episode, we're going to show you, first, we're going to show you how to truly understand what an offer is. We're going to show you how to experiment with different delivery formats. And it's different than an offer. And then we're going to talk about how to diversify so that you've got multiple ways to deliver your magic without, like Tom said, stretching yourself too thin.
And here's the best part. To make this a lot easier for you listeners, we've put together the Irresistible Offer Playbook. It's a quick start guide that's going to help you build offers that practically sell themselves. You're going to see examples from our consulting businesses and our clients, other clients that we've worked with, and use the exact checklist we run through before launching anything. And you can grab it free right now at unleashyes.org/offer. And by the time you're done listening, you'll know exactly how to use it to start booking clients now.
Yes. Okay. So let's get into it. This is going to be a good one.
Into it.
So let's start with talking about what an offer actually is.
Right.
Because this is such a big misconception people have that we like to clarify right off the hop for folks. Because often they'll come to us and they'll say, what should I offer first? Should I work on a book? Should I do a conference? Should I attend conferences? Should I host conferences? Should I do something online? Should I do one-to-one? And people have completely lost the plot as soon as they ask that question, because what an offer really is a transformation.
Right.
It's not the things you do. We're going to talk about that when we get into delivery.
Right.
It's a transformation. And in this digital age, it's so important that we remember that what people truly value isn't a whole bunch of information. It's actually this idea of a transformation. So that means you have a clear problem that you can solve for them because you've solved it for yourself and you have lived experience with it, or you solved it for clients or students or teachers, whomever you've been working with.
Right.
And you can say to them, I've been where you are. I understand this problem deeply. I've actually solved it. I've come out the other end. Here's all the wonderful things I've achieved. And then they can then look at you and say, no, that's something I want to be a part of.
Right.
And if you don't understand that core transformation and you just start building all the things, you're going to quickly end up on this hamster wheel where you're just making a bunch of stuff, but it's not actually solving any problems. So it's not going to sell.
Right.
And that is so, so, so critical to understand. Clarity is such a key word here.
Right.
I think we mentioned this last episode, but one of our favorite business gurus, Natalie Ellis of Boss Babe, she said on a recent podcast about how to succeed in 2025, clarity is like the key word, all caps. If you're not clear, nothing else matters. Your content doesn't matter. You won't make sales. You won't have a business. So the more crystal clear you can be on who do you help, what problem do you solve for them, and what outcome can you promise them, the more everything else becomes seamless and easy.
Right. Right. So how you craft that offer and how you message that offer is very important. So listeners, here's a couple of examples that we can work with. One that will be a little bit vague, and then maybe we'll try to rework it to see if we can make it a little bit more clear for sure. So one example of an offer might be somebody who says, listen, I help people who are curious about assessment to expand their practice. Sounds very aspirational.
Yes.
And on the surface, a lot of people would look at that and say, yep, that checks. That sounds really good. But there is no specificity there. There's so much depth and breadth to assessment. And what is curious? I mean, curious is, okay, that's I mean,
it's not a problem.
It's not a problem, right? That's the thing, is you're trying to solve a problem. And I think this is the part that people forget. It's not like I am very smart and I have all this information that I'm going to share with you. No, I'm going to help you resolve an issue. So if we were to refine that statement around offer, we might want to be more specific and say, I help middle-level leaders. So right there is specificity, right?
Yeah.
I help middle-level leaders who are struggling to inspire their colleagues to think differently about assessment, to leading a grassroots movement that sparks a revolution of their assessment systems so that grades reflect authentic learning rather than obedience. Right? Or compliance. Yeah. So the specificity around, even though we said assessment again, which has a lot of depth and breadth, we drilled it down to, hey, making sure that grades are about learning, not about obedience. Looking at middle-level leaders, there's specificity there as well.
Yeah. And the key thing here is that problem. And if you didn't hear it, let's just double tap on that for a second.
Right.
So middle-level leaders is the who. So we've got some specificity there, but what's their biggest struggle? Inspiring their colleagues to think differently about assessment and grading. Right. They've read the books, they've gone to the PDs, they know what they should do. It's all right there. They've done it in their own classrooms, but they can't inspire their colleagues to move. That's a huge problem. Yeah. Something every middle-level leader or school-based admin has dealt with at some point. Yeah. So yes, assessment is a part of like what you're going to learn about, but it's really about like, how do you coach people to think differently? Right. And something else I want to point out here, and that we talk about endlessly with our clients, probably like every single week this conversation comes up. So we want to tell it to you. You want to find the emotion in here. When we talk about transformation, and what we're really saying is there's a journey from some kind of a pain to some kind of a really desirable promise. So in that journey are feelings. And we've almost become like, I always struggle at saying this word, anesthetized. Did I say that right?
I think you did.
Okay, good. Awesome. I have a bit of a lisp, so sometimes it can get a little tricky. But we become truly like anesthetized to feeling and talking about emotions in the education space. And you just think back to even when we were in university, it was like, don't use I in your essays. Talk from this objective, like one might think that. Like we just, this idea of feeling and having like a takeaway on the world that we're experiencing is something that's just been beaten out of us by the academic system. And so going back to a place where we're talking really honestly about our journey and our story and what it felt like is how we actually build empathy and move other people, not just listing all the things that we do. Yeah. This is huge. This is something we see all the time. People say, I help, they've got the group. I help middle-level leaders change assessment practices by designing really practical tools and coaching them through a process of group-oriented, constructivist learning and helping them by giving them templates and a timeline and a ton of clarity about what it is they're going to stop. No. As soon as, like, a good rule of thumb with an offer is like, as soon as you've got a big list entering the chat, if you will, right, you got a problem. Yeah. Like if you can speak definitively about this one place to this one place, and this is the journey, and describe in vivid emotional detail what it feels like to be in the pain and what it feels like to be in the promise, then you're onto something. If you start listing a bunch of things, you've lost the plot.
When your offer, and this is the way I always think of it, is that when your offer sounds like there was a 13-person committee charged with putting together the mission statement, and everybody had to have their contribution.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to say this, and I wanted to say this, and you've got 15 commas in there, and an M dash, and all sorts of stuff going on. You realize that this is just a clinical statement that is trying, because most mission statements try to encapsulate everything, and
make
you can
everyone
tell.
happy.
So your offer really does tap into the emotions. Even the part around, I want people to change their assessment practices, or we want to spark a revolution. Like that will conjure up a different feeling just by saying that. So something's happened to us where we went down the pathway that it sounds smart to not speak from an emotional place. But I think we recognize in 2025 that emotion is how you spark change. You know, change is more, we talk about this with people all the time. Change is more emotional than clinical. So all of the technical know-how, that's great, but you want to reach people emotionally if you want to move them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the emotions of that are critical. Now, and Natalie, you mentioned this earlier, we talk a lot about delivery and offer, and this is where the two things get confused, because we say, what is your offer? And somebody says, I do workshops. Well, that's not an offer.
No.
That's a delivery. And so the important part is to make sure that we can play. The nice part is if you think of your offer as being kind of the hub of the wheel, and then your delivery is the spokes that come off of that, right? So I can have an offer of transformation around sparking a revolution around assessment, and I deliver that through a number of different formats, one-to-one coaching. I could do an online group coaching program. I could deliver workshops. I could do a keynote address. I could do a half-day presentation. I could do an online webinar. Those are all delivery formats. And I think what happens is people try to diversify their offer by thinking the offer is the delivery.
Yes.
But once you have that transformation statement and that offer, now we have the opportunity to have a number of different delivery formats that can sort of evolve as time goes on. I do an online group coaching program. Out of that comes somebody who says, hey, can you come and do a workshop at our school? I think the rest of our faculty needs to hear from you. So these deliveries can happen organically. Sometimes you can force them. You can say, hey, I'm going to do an online group coaching program, and I'm going to do a workshop presentation somewhere else. But most of the time, they do happen organically. A lot of our clients have done online group coaching program, and then out of that has come that speaking opportunity. So this allows you to, it's going to sound terrible, but it allows you to pull the cord, as we like to say, because, you know, for example, my Grading from the Inside Out content is a 2-day national training that I do all across the United States. I also have a 1-day version of it, which is actually the one that I do the most for schools, an on-site PD. But I also have a half-day version of that when we want to split the day between different topics. And people say, could you do a half a day on grading and a half a day on this? Yep, sure. I've got a condensed version of that. I've got a 90-minute keynote on that. So it allows me to sort of, quote unquote, and again, it sounds a little cynical, pull the cord. You're still delivering it with passion, and you're still delivering it in a way that is authentic, but it allows you to refine that message, because the things that I say in that workshop and the things that you've said on my behalf in terms of when you've done that training, it's repetitive in a good way, in the fact that you are just relentlessly refining your message. And it's so interesting to me in professional learning when people say, oh, I've heard that before. I'm like, you've listened to the same song since you were 11. And yet, God forbid you hear the same message from me twice, right? I mean, you hear what you're ready for. So the repetition of it is sometimes an advantage, and people might think, oh, I want to be different. I want to be different. But sometimes they'll come to the workshop, the 2-day workshop, and they'll say, we want you to come to our school. And you might think creatively, I want to create, I want to be something different. But they're hiring you because they want you to say exactly what you said at the workshop in front of their faculty. So they want the repetition. So it allows you to pull the cord, if you will, in a way that says, I'm going to just keep delivering this message. Last thing I'll say about this, because I know I've been going on and on about it. But somebody asked me a question one time in a workshop. They asked me an assessment question, and they had been in a previous session of mine about 5 years previous. And I answered the question. He asked the question, and he said, I know how you're going to answer me. I already know how you're going to answer me. I said, and we laughed. We were smiling. And I said, okay, well, 2 questions. One is, why did you ask the question if you already know how I'm going to answer it? And 2, do you think my answers would change when my answers are research-based?
Yeah.
Like, my answer's not going to change. Like, this is what formative assessment is about, or this is what feedback is about. So the repetition of the message is actually what has those key ideas that you're trying to teach in your transformation. That's what has them stick.
Right. Oh my gosh, there's so much to double tap on there.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
End scene.
End scene. That's right.
This is something so many people get backwards. Like we said at the beginning, people say, I want to do this, and they list a bunch of delivery formats, and they think they have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, in every single one of those formats. But this true sense of freedom and depth and really like meaningful transformation that we want to impact in education comes from actually doing less offers, if you will. And actually, there's a lot of business podcasts that we've been listening to where they've said, and these are people who have scaled to like not only $1 million, but like 10 million or on their way towards $1 billion, like super successful businessmen and women who have said the secret is getting bored.
Yeah.
You need to get a little bit bored because of the repetition. And I think as we go into the space and we want creative freedom, we have to remember it's an act of generosity to actually say, I'm going to do the same thing over and over to get so good at it that you can spend like 60 minutes with me and I'll change your life.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly what this offer looks like beginning to end with every context, every type of person, different countries around the world. So when you ask me that question, I'm about to give you such a nuanced, deep answer. It's going to like click into place for you immediately. I've got the perfect analogies at the ready. If we're constantly chasing our own sense of like novel and new, and I'm going to constantly create new things all the time and new topics and new offers, then people are going to always get this kind of surface level, shallow experience. And on top of it, you're going to burn out because you're just going to be so tired because you're always trying to do new things. Like we talked about at the beginning, you might feel like a bit of a fraud because deep down you're like, oh, I don't really know this from all different angles and sides and at a level of depth. So the right question will throw me off my game immediately. And so it's really an act of generosity to be a little bit boring, if you will, like to push yourself to be a little bit more repetitive.
Yeah. But I don't know what it is about this professional learning space or this learning-based business space that has us thinking differently. Again, I mentioned this earlier. You think about musicians. When they write a song, they don't go, wow, I wrote that song last year. I don't want to sing that song this year.
I don't want to do it again.
They sing the song, they sing the hits. You go to a concert, say it's a really old band like the Rolling Stones. It's like, okay, I want to hear I Can't Get No Satisfaction. That was like 1968 or whenever that song came out. People still want to hear it. Comedians, they go to the little, in New York, they'll go to the small comedy clubs, practice their jokes, stumble, fail, refine the act before they do the big stadium tour.
Yeah.
They have told those jokes hundreds, if not thousands of times. But for some reason, we hesitate to say the same thing in a professional learning setting that we said 2 months ago, right? Yeah. It's a weird phenomenon when people come in and they go, oh, I've heard that before. Yeah, we probably need to hear things I heard it once said that you need to hear something 29 times before it actually drills into you. So the questions will help refine you and grow you, but staying to your core message and understanding what that specific offer is and then how you deliver that message, not just the delivery format, but what is the sequencing of ideas or how do you deliver that can be a really, really helpful way to look at it.
And here's the thing about repetition. We've both experienced this so many times.
Yeah.
People will come to the same PD, if you will, like the same workshop, the same webinar, and you'll know it's exactly the same. And they'll leave being like, wow, that was amazing. And I've never it was really cool how you brought this up because the truth of the matter is people hear what they're ready for.
Exactly.
And so when they might hear it 6 months later or a year later or 2 years later, they have a completely different experience of it, even though you've kept things really tight because certain things just didn't land the first time. Like I remember the first time you talked about the difference between stress and pressure in a workshop that I attended, I was like, over my head. And then the deeper I've gotten into this work as an assessment consultant, I realize how important that nuance is between the two when we're talking about behavioral interventions.
Right.
But I wasn't ready for it 4 years ago.
No.
So it literally was like gibberish. I was like, oh, I don't even know what
I
it
had
to
that
take.
same experience in a training I went to on behavioral support. I was at a workshop with Dr. George Sugai, and he went through everything that had to do with tier 2 interventions, totally over my head. 1 year later, I was at the same conference and he was talking about tier 2 interventions. And I wrote it down and it clicked for me. I'm like, that's the missing link for our school. I flipped back into my notes because I had a notebook that I always put my PD notes in. I flipped back like, probably 15 pages because I'd been to other professional learning events in between. I wrote down the exact same thing.
Yep.
I wrote it down, but it didn't land. So
isn't that funny, hey?
we often look at things through our own lens and we say, oh, I'm so repetitive. I'm so this, I'm so that. But that's actually what people appreciate.
They do.
Now, when you get into the informal settings and they start asking you questions, that's where you're going to be able to grow your creativity. When people say, hey, here's our dilemma. What's an imperfect solution for this scenario? Well, that's when you get tested and that's when your expertise starts to come out. But your core message, we really want to stay on core message, because if you believe strongly in that core message, why would you change it? That is your message. That is your transformation. And that's what you offer. So listeners, we think like, what is the transformation that I offer? And then how am I going to deliver that? And if you think of it that way, that's a way to kind of remind yourself that delivery is not an offer and offer is not delivery.
And this, I'm just going to speak on this briefly. I feel like we could do a whole episode on pricing, but this difference between offer and delivery is at the heart of how you truly get paid what you're worth, and you tap into the financial freedom that is possible in this space. If you're thinking delivery first, and then I'll just make up whatever offer people want me to in all these different spaces, then you're going to start thinking through the lens, and this is a business term I'll throw out there, so hold your hats. You're going to start thinking through the lens of, thank you. Tom just held his hat if you're listening. You're going to start thinking through the lens of commodity.
Right.
And when you think commodity, it's a race to the bottom. So I have a 1-hour workshop that's going to be delivered online, and I want to be the cheapest 1-hour workshop delivered online, because what you don't have is the qualitative differentiating factor of the offer.
Right.
So if you have a transformative offer that you've witnessed change classrooms, change schools, change teachers' lives, change the outcomes for kids, that's highly valuable. You want to be premium because you're about to change people's lives. It doesn't matter if it's a workshop, if it's a keynote, if it's a one day, if it's one-on-one coaching. That offer and that transformation is the same, whichever package you put it in. So then you can price it accordingly as at a more premium price. If you're constantly just putting a bunch of stuff out there and you're filling it with whatever people want you to fill it with, the goal is to be the cheapest. And if you do that, you're going to hate this space. You're going to feel like you're doing all this work and making like $400 a month, and you'll be out within a year. So this difference between offer and delivery is key to actually find financial freedom.
It's value, right? And we talk about to our clients all the time. Like, if we're looking at just price, no one would go to Starbucks.
No.
Right?
No.
We all know Starbucks is
overpriced.
Too expensive and overpriced. And yet here we are walking around the town proudly with our Starbucks cups as if they are these trophies or status symbols. And I'm going to pay $5.50 or $6 and willfully. I know what I'm doing because it's the experience. I talk all the time about the book I read years ago called The Starbucks Experience, about how they curate this environment for people. It's the music. People like working there. So we all know that there's cheaper coffee elsewhere. At home. You can, never mind going to Tim Hortons or even McDonald's or whatever. We go to Starbucks because it's the value. We know what the price is. Nobody's shocked that it's the price it is. And yet we all go in there and we line up because it has a value for us in terms of the experience. And that's why we choose to do it.
Exactly. You're not buying the coffee. You're buying the experience. You're buying a sense of status. I know there's a lot of coffee shops out there now, but they were the first one. Like when I was 16, we got our first Starbucks in Vernon, BC. Carrying that cup was such a status symbol. And that's what you're actually investing in, the transformation of, I'm not just a regular small town girl from Vernon. I am someone who drinks Starbucks, and I'm like a city girl. I'm a little bit like Parisian because this is what they do in European countries. They go to coffee shops. Like, you're buying that whole transformation into a different kind of identity. Totally.
iPhone's the same.
iPhone, I'm creative. I'm busy. I got important things to do.
Because you can get a cheaper phone. You can get a free phone. You can get an Android for free. You can get, but the iPhone is more expensive. But what is the value? The value is, it's a little bit of as our one guy we like to listen to, Scott Galloway, says, it's a luxury brand.
It is.
So it is that status symbol because it carries value and it carries weight. Now, we're not suggesting it be all superficial like that, but the point is we want you to recognize that when people value something, that's when they invest in it. It's not just because it's the cheapest. No. It's because it has value.
You'll get the worst clients in the world, by the way, if you try to just make yourself the cheapest. Anyways, we're going to move on. We can go on. We really could make a whole
Let's talk about diversifying.
Episode. Let's talk about diversifying.
Yeah.
So we actually literally just got this question this morning. Like, when you work with clients, like, what exactly does their business look like? Like, what are they creating? Is it in person? Is it online?
Right.
And here's the secret that we found in our own businesses and the folks who have been the most successful that we've worked with. The key is to do a little bit of both.
Right.
Diversify. In fact, one of the best compliments I ever received was from my accountant. And I was always nervous when she called because I'm like, oh, what am I doing wrong?
We never want to hear from the accountant.
CRA is coming to get me. I'm going to be arrested. For like years, I was sure I was going to be arrested.
Yeah.
But anyway, she said, after year 1, she said, you need to know how amazing it is, what it is you just did. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I've worked with tons of clients that go into this space. They're consulting, speaking, freelance, whatever you want to call it. She says they don't typically make any profit in the first 3 years. Like that's just kind of what we as accountants recognize is we're just going to help them cover things and make sure their, expenses are paid and that their taxes are taken care of, but they don't make a profit.
Yeah.
And I did quite well in my first year. And by year 3, as I've talked about before, I was making nearly triple my former salary. And what she pointed out, this is the first time I heard the word diversification, because she pointed out to me that when she looked at where all the revenue was coming from, I have all these different streams. I'm not just obsessively putting all my eggs in one basket and trying to make one thing work. So what I did is I started with an online group coaching program, so a digital remote delivery. And then I also had an in-person conference that I hosted that year.
Mm.
And I also from that got a bunch of on-site consulting and speaking work from that as well. So same offer, that middle level leader is leading a grassroots revolution. That was mine. That was my initial offer in the empowerment ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And the key though was that I could put my foot on the gas of different levers whenever I needed income. So when you have something online, you can control the influx of people that you bring into it. Because you could say, I'm going to start a cohort in September. And then you get a bit busy, you get some in-person work, and then you're like, okay, my next one's in February. Why? Because I need the next bump of cash. So you can kind of control your income with something digital. And it also allows you that flexibility to work from home and have some peaceful weeks. And then the beauty of that is it can get lonely. So you get some in-person work, you get in front of people, you get that little boost of like sharing a room with people and the energy, travel, getting to go to new places. But that can be exhausting. That can burn you out. And really, I know for me, it takes a big toll on me like physically and even mentally a little bit. So then you can go back into your little nest and work on some online stuff for a while. And so it really sustains your energy to be able to keep doing work, bringing in income and keeping yourself energized.
Yeah.
So this idea of diversification is key. And what we often say is it's nice to have a balance of what is a delivery in which they come to you. So an example of that would be like an online group coaching program where you kind of set the start date, you set the meeting dates, people invest, they show up at those times through Zoom, so they kind of come to you. And what's a situation in which you can go to them? So that often could be in-person PD on site at schools. It could be speaking at an event or at a school that you were hired at. But if you have those two things, you have so much predictability in your business, and you also have that nice variety that you get between traveling, being with people in a room, and staying at home, working online, and things will become very sustainable very quickly.
Right. And listeners, Natalie and I definitely have a bias toward, especially when you're starting off, because as Natalie said, you could do a number of different things. You want to go to a bunch of conferences and get yourself known and speak in front of people. Well, you're going to burn a lot of cash doing that. Like that's going to cost you a lot of money. So for us, pound for pound, the most efficient and effective way to get started is through an online group coaching program because it requires very low overhead, right? All you need, what do we always say? You need an internet connection and like a Zoom link or Teams or whatever your Google Meet, whatever your platform of choice is, because we get no sponsorship out of those. But all you need is the internet and you can bring people together. You can do it from the comfort of your home. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. So if you have a lot of money that you just feel like burning on travel because you want to travel for work, sure, you could go to conferences, you could try to get yourself known that way. That's what I had to do in the 2000s because social media and the internet were not being used that way. The internet, of course, existed in the 2000s, but we didn't use it the way we use it now as a tool. Back then, it was a toy. And then in the 2010s, it became a tool. And I wished I was able to, I look back and I've said this to you so many times that I wish I would have been able to leverage the internet the way you did, because I would have loved to have started with that hub of an online group coaching program and then been able to turn that into speaking opportunities and all that. So there's ways to structure it. Now, if we were to zoom out, we think about our online group coaching program or things like that. One of the things that we talk about with our clients is how to build kind of an offer funnel. And this idea that you have a premium offer, which could be your premium offer, that which you would charge the most for would either be a keynote talk or your online group coaching program, which would represent a sort of what's often in the industry called a high ticket offer, right? That costs money. for people, there's a real significant investment. What a lot of advocates say, and some people in the field disagree with this. So if you're listening to other business experts, some people are not really into funnels and some people are. And recently I've seen some things online where people are like, you don't have to do funnels anymore. I feel like they're just trying to be different to be different.
Right.
A funnel really is literally funneling people into your premium offer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to be clear when I say this. There is nothing about this that is trickery or manipulative, right?
No.
So a funnel basically is steps along the way that solves a successfully, how am I saying this? I can't even speak today.
Yeah, S's are hard, don't worry.
A successfully more complex problem. There, I spat it out.
It's like a learning progression, I'm just realizing.
Yeah, in a way, it's like a learning progression.
Assessment nerds, yay.
Yeah, I'm an educator. I am educated and I know how to talk. I guess I used to always say never do math publicly, but now it's like don't speak publicly. Apparently.
That's
all right,
a problem for
That's
your
a problem for me. So you might start with something that's free. And you just say to people, hey, here's a checklist or here's an idea or 2 things that I did to make my morning routine at work a little bit easier or something like that. So you offer them something free. That brings them into your world. You might gather their email, have an email list that you can begin to kind of nurture that audience. And then there's often what's referred to as a quote unquote low ticket offer. Listeners, you might be, of course, familiar with our low ticket offer, which is the Educator's Business Blueprint, $47 on sale. It's not a high cost to anybody, but it's information. There's a low threshold for people and you're bringing them and you're solving a slightly bigger problem.
Yeah.
Then a mid-ticket offer, which again sits somewhere, in a $399 to $1,500, $2,000 range. You're solving a bit of a bigger problem. It's a little more investment and it keeps funneling toward your premium offer, which would be that full immersed experience in the online group coaching program or a keynote address for which you charge $3,000, $5,000 or whatever for the day. So a funnel really is a way of nurturing your audience. It's not again, I can't emphasize this enough because I think some people might view this as manipulative or you're trying to trick people. Every step along the way has to have value for people. Yes. So when people get your free offer, your checklist or whatever, and if that's all they ever got from you, that's going to help them solve a high-level problem, right? Just a surface level problem. I got to get more organized before the day starts. Here's 3 things I do to do that, free. Now, the business blueprint that we do, that's a low ticket offer. If people bought the Educator's Business Blueprint and just did that and followed the steps we lay out in that program, they could start a learning-based business. Now, what are they not getting? They're not getting the coaching. They're not getting the materials. They're not getting all that stuff. If they want that, there are further offers. So we are very adamant with our clients to say that if you are going to build a funnel, make sure that it's not like, hey, tune in next week and you might actually get the answer. No, you can get any answer at every level, but each one is a successively. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble saying that today.
Okay. It's the rain. Blame the rain.
It's probably the rain.
It's rain. Vancouver.
It's solving a bigger problem on each step along the way. How about that?
Cheers to that.
I got to practice that 20 times.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. Yeah.
But again, we'll talk about this in a little bit. We do have something where if you're like, okay, this is all making sense, but I kind of want to see it concretely and I want to move through this on my own successively.
Successively. Yeah.
Okay.
Why can't I say that?
We actually have something to help you out with that. But let's bring this home. Okay. So if you take nothing else from today, remember this: the right offer will protect your time, your energy, and your income. So clarity, flexibility, and diversity aren't just these nice to have things in your business. They're the reason that you get to work on projects that you actually love instead of filling your days with busy work other people think that you should be doing.
Right. And we're not just talking about theory here, right? Because these are the exact steps we've used to create offers consistently, and they consistently sell themselves to other people. And our clients can't stop talking about it, right? I mean, this is why we put together something that you can steal today, if you will, the Irresistible Offer Playbook. It's a quick start guide packed with examples from our own consulting businesses and, as we said before, from our clients as well, plus the exact checklist we run through before launching anything new.
Yep. So if you want to grab that, you can either go directly to unleashyes.org/offer, or we actually just have a link in this episode's description to keep it really easy for you. But honestly, it's the shortcut that we both wish we had when we were starting out. It would have saved us tons of years of trial and error and awkward anti-racism sessions with cowboys on a dude ranch.
Ranch handlers or whatever they're called, right? All right, next week we're going to dive into a topic that will change how you show up online forever. It's your visibility system. We're talking about how to finally stop lurking and start posting with purpose on social media and to create content that actually brings clients to you. You do not want to miss this episode.
All right, that's it for today, Yes Club. So go grab your playbook and we'll see you in your earbuds in 2 weeks.